Well, good morning. You're joining us from Eccles Auto Service, and everybody knows Bruce.
Yeah,
Right?
pretty famous guy.
Yeah, Bruce has been here for a little while, but Scott, you're kind of the main guy now.
Yeah.
You've kind of taken over.
I've been here for 21 years this year, but I purchased it in 2019.
That's how old you are. You've been here since you were born.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. That's awesome. This is
Thank
my
you.
first time here. I know Tim has come here a bunch of times.
Yeah.
We're talking about the importance of getting your car serviced and not just getting an oil change. There's a really big difference, right?
Correct. Yeah. So what are you getting if you say go to a quick lube style place versus independent shop like us? Is we at this shop we do a digital inspection, which means we look at all your lights, levels, wiper blades. We do a whole digital report. If we find anything wrong with the vehicle, we're going to email or text you a picture or video. And what you also get is you have someone who is licensed or registered with Skilled Trades Ontario, meaning that they are trained in what to look at on your vehicle, what's safe and not safe.
Right.
So a big example is this vehicle right now it's on a hoist, so the wheels are hanging.
You don't get those at the quick lube.
Most
drive
quick
in
lubes,
and it's underneath,
yeah,
right?
they have what you call a pit. And an example of something that would be missed, if I could show you here, is when it's in a pit and the weight is on the tires, you would not be able to see that this vehicle needs a ball joint. So if you look in there, and we're going to shake this wheel, you can see there's a bit of movement at the top, but nothing at the bottom. And what's happening is this joint is shaped like your hip socket. It's a ball and a socket.
Yeah.
And
I would never think of that.
and it's wearing out and it's got some play.
Yeah.
And like in a bad case scenario, this wheel that could come apart and then you're stuck wherever you are.
Yeah.
But when you're at a place with a pit, you cannot physically check that.
Yeah. So that's like a really big safety concern.
Yeah, it is. And there's other components you can't check. Same thing when it's on a pit.
Yeah.
But that's just one of those things. And then for us, when we look at a vehicle, this is something we check while doing an oil change. So it's not just, we don't just change your oil and just change your filter.
Yeah.
We're making sure that your tire pressures are at the right pressure, that they're not wore out.
So if I come into you guys, how do you communicate that problem with me? Like, do you call me? Do you
So like I said, every technician who works for me has a tablet.
Okay.
And we run a program, a digital vehicle inspection program called Auto Service. So in this, we can take a video of that, and it will be text you or email you, and you can see a problem. Because sometimes,
That's so
like you said earlier, like what's a ball joint?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't need to go through the technical aspects of it. I can say this
show it to me.
This isn't supposed to move.
Yeah.
And it is, and that's bad.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right, so for someone that didn't know what a ball joint was, I've been educated now. Okay, coming up, we are going to be taking a look at electrical vehicles, we're going to talk brakes, and we're going to talk tires. There's so much more coming up on Morning Live. We are back at Eccles Auto Service. Professional automotive service since 1984. Scott's the guy that we've been talking to today. It's all about electric vehicles. I know a lot of people are really starting to get into the market, so a lot of auto body shops have come to, you got to learn about them. You have to learn how to fix them. You have to learn how to service them and maintenance them. I've never looked under the hood of an electric vehicle before, and it looks kind of like a computer to me.
Yeah, it's a bit weird looking, right?
It is.
Yeah, so,
Like it's small.
Yep. So this is what drives your vehicle. You have all the orange wires are your high voltage wires. So I mean they're safe to touch, but don't start unplugging stuff.
Right.
But some stuff to talk about with EVs is that they still require maintenance, like a regular car. Some stuff's gone away. Obviously, no oil changes. They don't have spark plugs, stuff like that. But like you can see in this vehicle, it still has a regular 12-volt
battery,
automotive car battery. They don't want you, as a person inside your vehicle, touching anything with 600 volts going through it. So you still have all your interior stuff, and your headlights and stuff are all still running off a 12-volt system. Yeah. And this particular car has 3 different cooling systems. So we have one that actually does the battery, one that does the drive unit inverter, and then that one is basically a 600-volt kettle for the heat in your car.
Why is that important to have so many cooling systems? Why can't you just have one?
So in this particular vehicle, so every manufacturer kind of does their own thing.
Okay.
On this one, the battery, it's important to keep at a certain temperature. Optimal temperature, so you get the most range out of it, and the battery lasts as long as it can.
Yeah.
So in the summer, maybe people don't know this, but in the summer, if it was like 40 degrees out and like super humid, and you had your car plugged in and charging at home, it'll be running the air conditioning, even though you're not in the car. in order to keep the battery at a certain temperature.
Oh, interesting.
And that keeps it at the optimal, so you have longest life and you get the best charge out of it.
Yeah.
So there's also one for the drive unit because it does need to be cool, but it might be at a different temperature. And then GM, for this particular car, for heat inside the vehicle, they have gone with their own cooling system, which I said is like basically a kettle. It's got a big element in there and it's heating it up. On other vehicles, they might run similar to a heat pump, which is all the rage right now with houses.
Yeah, totally.
So they'll run a heat pump. So they actually run the AC backwards, and that'll create cold air out the front of the car, creates hot air in the car, and then they have an electric element inside, kind of like a baseboard heater, in case it's really cold. But part of that is this coolant is no different than the last 20 years in GM, and they're good for 5 years service life. So,
wow.
So any 2019 out there right now this year, all these fluids need to be serviced.
Yep.
And other stuff, like they still have brake fluid, they still have a cabin air filter.
Yeah,
which
that makes sense.
Filters the air you breathe.
I always get caught on that one.
Yeah, the cabin air filter.
Yeah. You got to change your air filter, and they pull it out and they show it to me, and I'm like,
full of
ooh,
leaves and bugs. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to change that.
So that stuff still exists on all EVs.
Yeah. And they're fun to drive, right? I've heard they're really fun to drive.
Yeah, they are. Even this little guy, very peppy off the line.
That's cool. So fun. Okay, coming up, we're going to be talking brakes, and we're still going to discuss how important winter tires are for your vehicle. All that coming up, but for now, I'm going to send things back inside the studio. Okay, Tesla's a bit of a bougie car. People think that maybe, okay, a Tesla can drive itself. Why would you ever need to get any maintenance done on it? It just takes care of itself, right, Scott?
Absolutely not. So this, we'll use Tesla as an example. So Tesla, right on their website, they do have a maintenance schedule. They have certain things they want replaced. And one of those things is, especially if you live in Canada, they want you to service your brakes every year.
Okay.
And what is servicing your brakes? It just means pulling the pads, pulling the slider pins out, cleaning everything, re-lubing it, making sure everything's working properly. Now, why is that important? Most people will understand if it hits them in the pocketbook why it's important. So this particular car, this Model S, Tesla has run a separate parking brake caliper. So unlike other cars that might use existing parking brake caliper, this one has its own.
Completely separate one.
Yeah. And while
Typical Tesla.
while we're replacing the brakes on this, the pads are falling apart. So I can take this off and show you that there are that's a brake pad in there.
So that's your brake pad?
This is just a parking brake pad.
That's the parking brake pad.
So regular brakes would be similar to this, but bigger.
Yeah.
And on this car, these pins are what hold these in here, and you have to get them out. Well, this pin has been here since, I don't know, the dawn of time, and never taken out. And it is in this piece of caliper, and you have to drive them out, and it won't come out. And to give you an example, this is one that came out, and it's all pitted and rusty, versus one that's new. And now, because we can't get this out, this car needs a new caliper.
The whole thing has to be replaced.
Yeah, on both sides. And so instead of like an hour's labor, we're into a couple $1,000s worth of brake calipers that we're waiting for,
And that could have been saved if they had done the proper instruction that Tesla even told them to do.
If you service your brakes, you take everything apart once a year, then this should be avoidable.
Right.
Yeah. Another special like Tesla only service, just because some people don't know, this Model S and then all the Model Ys come with something super fun called the bioweapons defense option.
Wow.
Yeah. So this car could have a HEPA filter in it that needs to be changed every 3 years.
And where do you you can only buy it from Tesla, I'm assuming, because where do you get a HEPA filter?
$500 from Tesla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. There you go. If you own a Tesla, you got to listen to Scott. You got to maintain those brakes once a year, because if you don't, that could happen to you. The importance of winter tires coming up, much more on Morning Live. Tires, they're dirty. They get you from A to B. Why are they so important? Well, Scott, he's been telling me a little bit off camera and tricking me a little bit to think that something is not what it seems when it comes to purchasing tires. Let's go through the different tires that you have here, because they all look similar but very, very different.
Yeah, sure. So the first tire we have here is what I would consider just a summer all-season tire.
Okay.
All-season tires in Canada are a bit of a misnomer. They should be kind of called just three-season tires.
Right.
You can see on this, there's like just nice flat surfaces. Not a lot of these lines, which are called siping. This is really going to give you really good dry weather traction. Not recommended for winter.
Okay. It's like putting ice skates on your car, kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll go into why maybe this makes sense.
Okay.
This is another all-season tire.
But see, that looks like a winter tire to
Yeah.
me. Like on first glance, I'm like, that must be a winter tire.
So this tire meets a mountain snowflake certification, which you might see on certain tires. And what that means is that it meets the minimum requirement of a winter tire, but the minimum requirement of a winter tire is an acceleration test. So from a stop, can it get to a certain distance under a certain time? Okay? It doesn't have anything to do
So
with...
it's not like a stop test,
No.
it's an acceleration test.
Yes.
That's weird to me.
And so it doesn't take into consideration cornering or stopping or ice.
Right, or anything else that's underneath.
So again, while it does meet the mountain snowflake, doesn't make it a winter tire.
Okay.
Okay.
So you would think that's more of like a, what
This
they
is
would
an
consider an
all-season.
all-season?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then this is an all-weather tire, not to be confused with an all-season.
What's the difference?
The difference will be, unlike, say, the summer tire, you can see you have lots of these lines, the siping lines, which give you grip on snow. Nothing gives you more traction on snow than snow. So actually, like, what they do is it holds on to snow, to bite into snow.
Right, that makes sense.
The difference between this and a winter is the rubber inside. So the rubber in this is actually harder than a winter tire, but softer than a summer. And the idea is it's supposed to be like an in-between.
Why would you get an in-between? That's so
for
funny.
us, we only recommend this tire, honestly, for people who do very little driving, or we're in Dundas, so we have like a elderly community. So like a lot of people, maybe they only go to the grocery store
Once in a while.
and church.
Yep.
So those tires are ideal because they're never going to drive when it's really bad weather, anyways.
Right, true.
And then this is Michelin's kind of version of an all-weather tire.
It looks kind of fun.
Yeah. So what they have these nice sipes here, which will give you winter traction.
Yeah.
And then this really funky design is excellent wet weather driving because it evacuates the
Wet weather driving.
Yeah. So like slush and stuff, it'll evacuate it away from the vehicle.
Oh, absolutely. That is kind of cool.
And then again, so this one, like Bruce has this on his Pilot and he loves it because they drive to Florida.
I'm a pilot too, Bruce.
Yep.
Yay! Yay, pilots!
So instead of having to run a winter at the same time because they drive to Florida when it's cold out, it kind of gives you a nice in between. And then the last one, we'll bring it around.
This is
it's
a real
an actual winter tire, and so the big difference on this tire compared to all of these is you'll have much more siping. Some of them, if you open up, you'll actually see have like blocks for grip when you're cornering. They'll like hold on to each other.
It's also little.
And and then what it also will have is it has this design to also evacuate, just like that other Michelin.
Yep.
And then the tire compound itself is designed to stay pliable or rubbery the colder it gets out. So an all-season tire will basically become a hockey puck at 7 degrees.
Yep.
And your winter tire will continue to be grippy. I think usually up to -10 or -15, depending on the manufacturer. Yeah. So it just gives you more grip.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Scott, for having us today.
You're welcome.
If people want to reach you, what's your website?
EcclesAutoservice.ca, so ECCLES Autoservice.ca.
We're going to have all the information up on our website as well. Lots more coming up. Stay with us.